The Gravity Group is a roller coaster design and manufacturing firm based in Cincinnati, Ohio. They are known for producing some of the world's greatest wooden coasters, and are by far my favorite company that specializes in those. Now, something to note about the Gravity Group is much of their rides were not entirely built by them. They sometimes partner with a Canadian company called Martin & Flemings, who is known for actually installing roller coasters. But occasionally, when they've been responsible for the majority of the work, the Roller Coaster Database, otherwise known as RCDB, will credit them for a specific ride, even though I'm going to be counting all of these as Gravity Group roller coasters for the sake of this video. Altogether, there are 25 of these rides located around the world, with many more under construction. But I've only ridden so many of these, meaning I will just be ranking the top 10 Gravity Groups that I have ridden. A quick honorable mention before we begin goes out to a select handful of attractions that have undergone Gravity Group renovations. I can think of at least 2 of these in Europe, including Tonnerre Tazuz at Parc Asterix in France, and Thunder Coaster at Tusenfryd in Norway. Even though these attractions have characteristics of a Gravity Group roller coaster, their layouts were designed by other companies, hence why they don't qualify for this list. For the most part, the rides you're seeing on this list are all from America, but there is one in Europe that made my top 10. Hopefully in the future I can get on more of this company's rides and we can update this video down the line. Alright, let's dive in, and start with the smallest Gravity Group I've ridden. Number 10 is Wooden Warrior at Quasi. Now right off the bat, it's important to understand that these rides all mean business, even the small ones. When I list off these stats, you're going to think they're so minuscule, and that's because they are. Height of 32 feet, length of 1,200 feet, and speed of 35 miles per hour. Unless you've ridden one of these family coasters by the Gravity Group, you likely wouldn't believe me when I say these rides have some powerful ejector airtime. It is a shame how short this particular installation is, even compared to some of the other family coasters we'll be talking about, but it still packs in a dang good punch. So if you're in the area for one of New England's larger parks like Six Flags or Lake Compounds, I'd highly recommend stopping by Quasi as well. Number 9, Oscar's Wacky Taxi at Sesame Place. Here we have another wooden family coaster that I only recently rode last fall after years of wanting to get on it. And I know it sounds ridiculous to say that about a ride at a theme park themed to Sesame Street and a coaster themed to Oscar the Grouch. But this is a deceptive little ride, and I think it's crazy that a park like this has a roller coaster with so much power. As far as length goes, this is a few dozen feet shorter than even Wooden Warrior, but for some reason Oscar's Wacky Taxi feels like the more complete ride, and I'm not entirely sure why. But I just found a couple of the airtime moments on here to be really quite impressive actually. Number 8, Zippin' Pippen at Bay Beach Amusement Park. This is our first full-size roller coaster to make my list, but having said that, it's still one that most members of the family will probably be able to enjoy. The layout was designed to replicate a classic wooden coaster at Tennessee's defunct Libertyland, which was actually known to be Elvis Presley's favorite roller coaster. This little park in Wisconsin contacted the Gravity Group and Martin Flemings to do this, and the result was a smooth, fun, graceful wooden roller coaster. Well, except for the ejector death hill at the end, which tries to kill you. I have no idea what happened here, but Zippin' Pippen has this one random airtime hill towards the end that probably gives the strongest airtime moment of any ride on this list. The rest of Zippin' Pippen is much tamer, but I will give these 3 parabolic camelbacks credit for having some really nice floater airtime too. Overall, just a really nice coaster. Number 7, Timber at Walibi Rhone Alps. Located at a French amusement park that I'm guessing many of you have not heard of, Timber is one of their 2 headlining attractions and is the largest of the Gravity Group's family coasters that I've ridden. The layout is noticeably stronger than any of the others on this list, with many instances of proper ejector airtime. The only downside is there is one nasty trim break on one of the final few airtime hills that really takes away from this coaster's finale. It's why I think the upcoming Bobcat roller coaster at Six Flags Great Escape in New York will dethrone Timber as my favorite family wooden coaster. That one will have only a slightly modified layout without the trim and using the manufacturer's new pre-cut track, which should offer an even smoother ride. Just thought I'd give it a mention since I'm really looking forward to Bobcat this year. But let's up the intensity once again with number 6, Switchback at ZDT's amusement park. You'll notice just how innovative this company gets with some of these rides coming up, but I have to say, Switchback might be the most unique of them all. It's the only wooden shuttle coaster in the world, meaning halfway through the layout, you start taking all of this ride's elements in reverse. Now by then it isn't going that fast, so it isn't anything too crazy, like I definitely think I prefer the forwards pass. But it doesn't take away from the fact that Switchback will probably blow a lot of people's minds when they first experience it. I would have never expected a park of this size, not even a park but a family entertainment center, to build such an impressive roller coaster. Number 5, Mindblower at Fun Spot Kissimmee. Something amazing about the Gravity Group is they are the only traditional wooden roller coaster manufacturer capable of flipping riders upside down. You see this incorporated into a handful of their rides, and Mindblower is no exception. But as cool of a moment as it is, it's the rest of the layout that stands out even more in my opinion. The first half of Mindblower consists of a fast-paced series of airtime hills and bank curves that are super intense. The main downside is because of how much stress this placed on the track, Mindblower got rough really quick, and to combat this, Funspot Kissimmee introduced steel track from Rocky Mountain Construction to some sections of this ride. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of this to begin with because I think wooden coasters should stay wooden, but I also find the transition between the two track types to be quite jarring and to some extent rough. So my hope is they either replace the entire layout with steel track, which I'm not crazy about, but at least the ride would feel cohesive. Or better yet, if they want to go back and install wooden pre-cut track to Mindblower, I think it would be so good it could probably climb another spot on this list. Number 4, Ravine Flyer 2 at Waldameer. Even though it's been since 2019 when I rode this coaster, I vividly remember how good it was and how creative the layout is. To mimic the course of the park's original Ravine Flyer roller coaster, Ravine Flyer 2 crosses over a road, which is super cool, especially if you have the chance to drive under it and see it whizzing by. You get some great airtime here too, but there's a lot more where that came from on this coaster. I love how they combine these little speed hills with tunnels that accentuate the sense of speed. And to top it all off, you've gotta love the terrain interaction with the ravine on Ravine Flyer 2. It's a terrific standout attraction for this small park, and I hope to ride it again at some point in the near future. Number 3, Hades 360 at Mount Olympus Theme Park. I think there's an argument to be made that this is the most intense wooden roller coaster ever built. And what I find so crazy is this was the Gravity Group's first project. Back when it opened, the ride was known as Hades and featured an almost identical layout to what you see now. But in 2013, they came in once again to add in a corkscrew and replace the trains with timberliners. In any stage of this coaster's lifespan, it's always had an insanely demented layout. It features the longest tunnel in any roller coaster in the world, passing underneath the parking lot for Mount Olympus, popping out into an inversion, and then doing it all again heading back towards the station. And what's wild is there's still a good chunk of the ride after this too. The only reason it doesn't take the number 2 spot is because the thing isn't maintained well at all. It is hands down one of the roughest wooden roller coasters I've ever been on, which is a contrast to almost all of the other rides on this list. But if you have a high tolerance for roughness, I can't recommend this park enough because they have a handful of really nice wooden coasters and Hades 360 is just an unbelievable ride. Number 2, Boardwalk Bullet at Kemah Boardwalk. According to the Gravity Group and Martin and Vlemix, this is the most compact roller coaster in the world because it crosses over itself 42 times in a single acre of land. Despite the lack of space they had to work with, Boardwalk Bullet packs in so much airtime and intensity, and unlike Hades 360, it's still running quite well too. Now, I was in the unique position where I only rode this coaster at nighttime because it was broken for upwards of an hour and a half upon my arrival. So it is possible I ranked this coaster so highly because I rode it when it was running so fast and when I couldn't see much of anything. But still, this layout is completely incredible, and I think every coaster enthusiast should make the detour to this park to experience it. Even so, it was a blowout for number 1 in my opinion, and that's the Voyage at Holiday World. I do not understand how this ride's even real and how this park is capable of maintaining all this track year by year. The Voyage spans 6,400 feet of length, making it the second longest wooden coaster in the world and the longest with a single lift hill. The reason it's able to maintain its speed so well is because of the subtle elevation change in this part of Indiana. I noticed it when I first visited the state after hearing it was so flat, but the truth is the southern part of Indiana has some really nice hills and mountains. What this means is the first half when you're traversing these large camelbacks, you don't even notice that you're going uphill even though you end up at ground level by the end of them. And then the middle section and return trip itself is longer than almost all roller coasters I've ridden, and it is incredible how fast you're going due to the terrain interaction. The Voyage wouldn't be anywhere near as enjoyable if it weren't smooth, but luckily Holiday World is one of the best maintenance teams of any park in the world. For those of you who aren't typically a fan of wooden roller coasters, you should absolutely visit this park because I can't imagine anyone who gets off the Voyage and isn't blown away by it. But there you have it, my top 10 roller coasters from the Gravity Group. Let me know in the comments what your favorites from this manufacturer are and which of these rides are on your bucket list. If you enjoyed the video, I'd really appreciate it if you could give it a like and subscribe to Coaster Dash for more content like this in the future. If you'd really like to support the channel, I'd also advise you to check out my new Teespring store where you can get yourself some Coaster Dash merchandise. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you very soon. Bye guys.